Hello, everyone. My name is Fernando Mico, the Executive Director of the NovaFest and the Capital Film Market. And we are joined once again virtually for a third year in a row by a couple of gentlemen who will be introducing themselves and us letting you know how awesome they are. Thank you, audience members, for joining. We'll open up the last half hour for Q&A. If you look below me, there are 3 boxes. Imagine those are, if it was in live space, those are microphones. Right now, the audience is muted. We can't hear you. You can throw up a few messages, word bubbles, and emojis. But if you'd like to have communication proper and speak with any of our guests, just click and drag or let me know. You drag yourself into one of those squares. And then again, it'll be like putting a mic at the end of the aisle of a regular forum space. So that's the housekeeping there. And again, we, depending on our guests on the stage here, more than willing to talk to you about any projects or productions, or hopefully they're there for you to answer any questions in general. Again, this is the business side of show business, specifically more in the distribution, but these are both filmmakers as well. So you can ask them about C-stands and Apple boxes as well. Yes, especially. So these guys are veterans. They're salty. They're awesome, and they've been around for a very long time. I'll let them share themselves and their backgrounds and pedigrees right now. So I'll just go from, hopefully I think we have the same screens. I'll just go left to right on my screen, starting with Marc. Please introduce yourselves to these fine people.
Hi, I'm Marc Clebanoff, coming to you from Los Angeles. Pleasure to be here. My company is called Odyssey Motion Pictures. We've been a production company since 2004 and a global sales agent since 2011. So we have a presence at, most of the major markets around the world. And then as of about a year ago, I also now have a finance company called CCM, Creative Capital Management LLC. So we are our own financiers as well. Everything we do is based on, a certain level of pre-sale distribution from the financing end. We do represent a catalog of third-party content, meaning we represent movies for other producers, but as I get further into the finance side, we're trying to focus more and more on producing our own content. We do 3 to 5 features a year, and we're like many people trying to break into series TV as well, which I'll explain a little bit more later.
Okay. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep. I'm Phil Gorn, Wonderphil Entertainment. A little similar, been around, started my sales side of the company in 2005, and been trying to produce or make, write, direct, or all the above. At least trying to do 1 film a year, but the other 11 months and 2 weeks of the year just focus on sales and representing completed films. We're not like Marc. I don't fund. I'm not helping with post. I'm not doing anything like that. We're just selling finished films. We're starting to look at series, but for the most part, it's completed features and docs. And the docs have been, for the most part, a little tough, little just small sales and not that many. So the features has definitely been more of the focus. I like docs. I take some on just because I like them and try, but and that's kind of what my company does. It's like we take films on and try, and if it works, great, and if it doesn't, then we're not like holding on to the film long, or we don't. It doesn't make any sense for us to hold it if we're not making any sales and it's not for the filmmaker. So sometimes we get shut out, and sometimes we live happily ever after. But it's um, never sure. Even sometimes, even when you think you got kind of a slam dunk, but usually when you got a slam dunk, you usually have a slam dunk. But to what degree in these days, I guess we can talk about that. I'm sure that's going to come up in the next 8 hours here.
Wow, it's longer than anticipated. It's fine with me. And thank you, by the way, because I'm not sure, I don't know how successful or to what degree of success some films you have picked up from NoFest. Right away I thought of One Doc in general, but there've been a couple of films that have gone through NoFest that you picked up. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. And please, where are you hailing from at the moment? I know, but
San Francisco. Yeah.
okay. So, special thank you to as well for both of you, because it's 10 in the morning over there for them. So making them get up nice and early.
Oh yeah, super early.
Yeah.
Because rock stars don't get up till the crack of noon usually, Hawaii time, right? So
cracking in the next day. Yeah.
So what do you got for us, Fernando?
Well, it has been a year, and it's been wild and wonderful and cruel. Generic throw out for the initial salvo question. Is there anything unique in 2022 April from 2021 April? Have there been any major jumps or really anything that's pinged on the radar that's significant enough to um, influence choices that are made in production across the board, even and distribution, obviously?
Yeah, it's all in its fucking head. Which I assume since you invited me on here, that means we're allowed to swear.
I have no idea where your reputation came from, but please proceed.
I mean, yeah, no, I wouldn't say anything's changed all that dramatically. From the acquisition side, I know that just from dealing with the projects that I'm currently dealing with, which I'm happy to share with you, but because of the pandemic, there is a lack of finished content floating around the market. So I know, talking to all my domestic clients, they're all looking for packaged things that they can pre-buy. Pre-sales are like the big thing everybody talks about that very few people can actually do. And if you're actually able to do it, I'm dealing with it right now. It's not necessarily the big blessing everyone thinks it is, for an array of reasons. But look, everything's becoming very volume driven because of digital streaming. On the sales side, Phil was talking about, it's like, oh, little sales. And he's right. We used to do big all rights licenses in, most territories around the world. And now, because everything's transitioning to digital, everything's becoming more volume driven. So buyers are trying to get their hands on as much content for as little money as they can, which for a sales agent, if you have a giant catalog of content that you want to pawn off to a digital buyer, that's great. But for the individual producers and filmmakers, that's very challenging, because the money they're seeing per license is getting much less. So yeah, I mean, a lot of things are changing, partly because of the pandemic, but mostly because of just the transition to everything being digital. I think AVOD is starting to emerge as kind of the dominant revenue stream for streaming. And God bless Tubi TV that Fox acquired.
Yes.
They're starting to expand throughout the world. It's one of our biggest revenue streams, and they're starting to expand into foreign territories, which I'm hoping will be a big game changer for smaller independent films.
I think you called it out last year that it's the new Netflix, so to speak.
I think
for good and bad. For good and bad.
They're going to be the Netflix of ad-based VOD. And when I say the Netflix, I mean, people think of Netflix as like the gold standard of distribution, maybe for the content creators, not for us. I mean, every deal I've ever done with Netflix, I've lost money on.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying, that they're this robust and they're getting content and
right.
They're monetizing your production, but down the line, are they going to be big enough?
Financially, it's not always the greatest deal, but in terms of eyeballs actually seeing your movie or your series or whatever, yeah, there's few things to compete with it.
I hate to break the flow of that, because I feel it happening, but Erik is now on stage, and I want to make sure you get your moment,
Erik.
Hey, I
How
finally
you
made
doing?
it in.
It's been a minute.
I'm glad you did, man. But I want you to have your moment to introduce yourself and let us know who you represent and anything else you'd like to share about yourself as we've actually started getting some traction and getting into it. And
Oh, so
I'll
we're just
refresh.
doing introductions first?
Oh, we already did introductions about
Oh,
and
okay.
Mark we just got into it. We just got our fingernails a little dirty, but I want to make sure
Oh, okay.
everybody sees you and knows you.
All right. Hi, everyone. Can we see audience members, or I see some?
Yeah,
My
the
name is
audience
Erik
members are
Lundmark,
muted and
and
they're
I'm
down there.
They all look the same. They have the same kind of smiley face.
Yeah.
okay.
So go ahead, Erik.
So anyway, I'm from Leomark Studios, and we are a U.S. distributor, and we have done a lot of foreign sales. But if I overheard Mark correctly, we're kind of scaling back on the foreign sales just because they're, for us at least, kind of disappearing, and we're focusing more on being directors with all these platforms globally instead of trying to in the movies foreign buyer.
Whoops.
Oh.
Let's
Well, see, the business is kind of flipped on its head. See what I mean?
let me adjust the microphone for you. Darby, I'm not sure what's going on there. Wow. Well, hey,
Yeah.
welcome to. Oh, now are you mute? You're not muted.
Man, I'm gonna use that for my next sci-fi effect right there.
maybe too much. I don't know, Erik. Maybe you might need to reboot. You had trouble getting in, so I'm kind of wary of that. But yeah, maybe try to go out and come back in. You can't even hear. Okay. Let me type that real quick. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, come in for a landing.
I'm not sure if you can still hear us at all. No. Okay. All right. Say something, Erik, or can you hear us at all? No. Okay. So let's just keep going then until Erik pops back.
Yeah, I mean, he just mentioned foreign sales, international sales being almost non-existent, and it's certainly less. Still, I mean, we're going to the international markets, and we're still trying to virtually, or I had a sales guy actually go to MIP TV, and which was we'll see what happens from it, but still trying to do some stuff.
I mean, is everything just real time right now? Because what you're saying right now will probably not be the case in 2023 or even in May.
I think it's heading in the right direction. Like I said, I think it's Tubi and some of these other streamers. Like, what everybody has to keep in mind is that just because here in the US we go to theaters and we have TV and we stream, we do everything. In other parts of the world, they don't have everything. They either just go to theaters or they just watch TV. And a lot of places in the world haven't really embraced streaming yet. So
actually, can you touch on that? Can you elaborate? Like what regions? South America, Europe, Asia?
Yeah, so like a lot of Asia, with the exception, weirdly, like Indonesia is this mecca of streaming content. They have 275 million people, which if you think about it is not far behind the population of the United States, and they stream everything. It's a really strong streaming market. Whereas like Japan, up until basically the pandemic, they're still watching everything on DVD.
Wow, that's good.
And that's a cultural thing, because when they buy something, they want something tangible that they can take home. So the pandemic kind of wiped that out. I literally was talking to one of my Japanese clients. He's like, we can barely cover the cost of subtitling at this point. So streaming hasn't really caught on there yet. It's starting to. It's not really taken off. Places like Germany too, even though they're like one of the most technologically advanced countries in the world, a lot of their population lives outside the big cities, and they don't necessarily have the infrastructure to stream content. So there's a lot of places it hasn't caught on yet, but it looks like that's changing. A few years from now, hopefully everywhere in the world will be streaming. That'll be the norm, and the economy that surrounds it will kind of level itself out. But right now, we're still in this transitional period where Everybody knows streaming is the future, but a lot of places haven't really embraced it or figured out how to monetize it. And as a result, there's just like, it's really tough to sell, especially the smaller films in these territories. Because if you have a film that's not a big theatrical film and you're trying to sell it to a territory that doesn't really have a platform to exhibit to their audiences, there's not really an opportunity to make that sale.
Are any of the fundamentals still there as far as like genre films, action, horror, that they're still easier to sell than a dark comedy?
Yeah, I mean, totally different topic, but
I understand. I'm a little random.
Of course, because the dark comedy doesn't translate in a lot of the territories.
Right.
So, I mean, that for one thing, and a lot easier to understand a punch in any language. But I actually, honestly, Mark, I've never really understood. I mean, I've had conversations with the buyers too. I've never, like they come at me and say, it's just VOD or something. I'm like, well, just VOD is everything. Like, they're trying to lowball and say, we're just getting, we just want VOD and we're a small territory or something. And I'm like, okay, well, first of all, you're not a small territory, and second of all, VOD. Once I give you VOD, I can't do anything else.
I think the problem is the volume, though. You know what I mean? Because if you think about it, like back in the Blockbuster days, like you had shelf space, which was like real estate, and there was a defined amount. And so the best films ended up on the shelf. Now the shelf is in the cloud. So there's just endless amounts of content. And as a result, it's always about keeping a steady flow of new content going through those pipelines. So as a result, I think the volume is what's driving prices down so much, partly because, again, streaming is not really strong in certain parts of the world yet. And then on top of that, they're not looking for just like 20 titles to fill a shelf.
No,
hundreds and thousands of titles to basically always have something new to put in front of people.
Yeah. And you look at the Target bin or Best Buy bin and look at what the like the physical DVDs, you have every Lethal Weapon movie on one disc for $4 or something, and I'm like, okay, so my little film that no one's heard of, nobody's in it that anyone's heard of, especially internationally, they haven't heard of anybody. When I do make a sale, sometimes I am like, why? Like, why did you want my film when you could have all 4 Lethal Weapons for $4?
But on the other hand, like going back to what Fernando just brought up, that's where genre, I think, does play into it, because there's certain genres that are always going to be more in demand around the world, like action movies. And then there's other genres that are just not going to translate as well because of cultural differences, like comedy or drama, things like that. So like I tend to focus a lot on action. A lot of what we do is action oriented because it's got a higher global demand. And as a result, I'm able to make a bigger movie and spend more money because I know that I'm going to have a better shot at making it back.
Right.
Okay. You mentioned like they're quantity driven. Like what comprises that quantity? Is it older films, are newer films even available? Because of the pandemic.
It's mostly newer titles.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we got, and Phil and Erik and I'm sure we sell to a lot of the same people. And that's the thing. Back in the day, you would do like an all rights deal, meaning you would sell all rights like TV, theatrical, digital, DVD, whatever, for one premium price to a buyer in a certain territory. Now you're getting a lot of these buyers that are just taking digital rights and they're trying to buy as much volume as they can. So as a result, they're not going to pay an all rights price for it. They're going to pay a much smaller price because they're just taking the digital rights. And instead of buying one big movie for, a premium price, they're going to try to pick up a package of films to put on their digital streamers and pay as little per title as possible.
Right. But at the same time, when they say, that's similar to what I was saying before, like when they say we just want digital rights, I'm like, well, that's kind of everything now. I mean, and
for small movies, I agree. Yeah.
And even if they have digital and it's online in their country, then it could certainly hurt TV deal in their country, the TV station would be like, why would we play it if it's free online or for 2 cents? So
I mean, do things like I forget is it MG, minimum guarantees? Does that even exist anymore? Is
Oh,
that
yeah.
part of the language? Or because it seems like everybody's trying to lowball, and that
Well,
was always a
it definitely exists, but the MGs are either very small, MG meaning the advance, they're either very small, or they're flat, or it requires a pretty significant genre film with cast driving it to drive real MGs. When I say real MGs, I mean like 5-6 figure MGs.
okay.
Yeah.
Someone just asked a question, but yeah, and I sometimes I forget, even just throwing my thing out there. A quick explanation, review again what an MG is, or even a VOD specifically. It's what's old is new again when it comes to a VOD. It's like watching television. You have the commercials, but can
Yeah, that's
you?
the irony of it is like, we've literally come full circle to how we watch TV in the 80s and 90s. We're watching it all for free and then just watching ads.
Even
Like,
70s and 60s, right?
yeah, Tubi TV is great. I don't know about you, Phil. It's like one of our biggest revenue streams. And now IMDb TV is turning out to be pretty decent as well.
What's their foundation?
IMDb TV is basically Amazon Prime. Prime got rid of
yeah.
all their independent content for streaming. You can still rent things like on a one-off basis. That's transactional VOD, but for like instead of going to Amazon, if you want to go watch an indie movie on Amazon Prime, it'll reroute you to IMDb TV, which I'm actually pleased about because they're paying a lot more than Amazon Prime was. Like, I'm just now starting to see reports for the first time from IMDb TV, and the numbers are decent. They're like what Prime was, 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Oh. Erik just got up, and that's the first time I heard him.
Yeah. Just so we don't hear any domestic fun stuff. I'll throw him in the audience for a moment.
But I mean, like, I'll tell you, like right now, and especially like from the finance end, like we just produced an action movie in Mexico, star-driven action movie. We pre-sold it. We covered about 65% of our budget. We spent almost $1 million and we covered about 65% of our budget through pre-sales. So even though we cash flowed it, like we don't, when you do a pre-sale, you don't get that money up front. You get it when you deliver the film. But, the film was, significantly securitized. Other than that, I'm doing TV movies. Like, I'm leaving for Mississippi in a couple of weeks to do a movie for Lifetime, which is not like my passion by any means, but, it's a movie that's pretty much bought and paid for.
Cool. Yeah, no, honestly, for me, I've given up on pre-sales. I used to, we're talking about the action flicks. I used to pre-sell, the action flicks that I'd make or a producer who I worked with before would make, and we wouldn't collect before the movie was finished. We'd collect after the movie was finished, but at least we knew it was coming as long as we finished it. And then we did all these gladiator things in Italy and did one after another. But the pre-sales for me, it's like it kind of dried up, and I haven't done. I kind of gave up on pre-sales.
Yeah, it's tough to pre-sell unless you have a very specific type of package. Like, we did an action movie with Michael Jai White and Tom Berenger, and we were able to get a significant domestic pre-sale based on the fact that it's guns and bullets and kicking and punching, and there's like an inherent value attached to a movie like that. But our budget was defined based on what the pre-sale numbers were coming in at.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of budget, were there? I haven't ever run across Mexico's production-wise. Did you get tax credits? Did they have incentives for shooting down there?
Get an insane amount of bang for your buck.
Gotcha.
We shot at Baja Studios, just south of the border. It's where they did like Titanic and Pearl Harbor and all that kind of stuff. It was an old Fox studio, and I mean, we spent about $900,000, but it looks like we spent a couple $1 million just because you get so much for so little down there. Also, wow. the movie happened to be set in Mexico, so that was a factor. I wouldn't go necessarily try to shoot a movie down there that isn't set in Mexico. That would be a little bit more challenging because you got to bring in extras and stuff like that. But for a movie that's set in Mexico, it was convenient.
pretty easy to get all the equipment and rental was not an issue.
Yeah. They have full production services and everything down there.
Yeah.
Whereas like this thing I'm about to go do in Mississippi, we're doing it in Mississippi because we're getting like a 30% rebate back, not a tax credit, but an actual cash rebate. And there's a $50,000 minimum spend. So as long as we spend at least $50,000 in state, we qualify for that rebate. So on a movie
you're like
spending a few $100,000 on, we're getting, you know, about 20% of our budget back from a rebate.
You're like Scooby-Doo, Sherlock Holmes. You found these little niche, because you found one here in Virginia as well, right?
Yeah,
that I was
I'm trying to put a bank robbery movie together in Virginia Beach. And then I got an action movie I'm trying to put together in Oklahoma. So yeah, it's either got to be, we were actually going to do that project in Eastern Europe, but now with everything going on there, it doesn't make sense to go. So we're trying to repurpose it in Oklahoma. But basically, there's a huge upside to shooting outside the country, which I'll tell you about. And then if we're in the country, yeah, I mean, it's got to be somewhere where we're getting money back, because otherwise it doesn't make sense.
Is LA just poop right now as far as trying to, you know, it already had so many hurdles to begin with.
Los Angeles is the most unfilm friendly place.
That's what I'm saying. Is it just gotten worse?
Yeah, it's miserable shooting here.
Oh man, that sucks.
Unless you're just completely under the radar.
In your own property, right?
Yeah, I mean, Film LA and SAG and they're like Gestapo, you know, and it's a cash grab. It's a big shakedown. It's literally like they're like the cartels in Mexico.
This saddens me. I mean, because I know I've also heard that a lot of people are leaving Atlanta right now. They're heading to Australia. Some of the bigger budget films.
Well, what happens is, you know, when these states create these incentives, you know, it obviously attracts a lot of business, and then infrastructure is built. And then after a while, once it becomes like an Atlanta or like Louisiana was prior to Atlanta, it becomes oversaturated, and then it just becomes a gouging cash grab. So like, I wouldn't go to Atlanta specifically for that reason. We tried to do something in Louisiana, and it was like trying to do business in LA. So I like places like Mississippi and Oklahoma that aren't too oversaturated yet. Problem is, infrastructure wise, in terms of like the amount of crews and equipment and things like that, you may have to bring a lot more stuff in. Like Mississippi, we're having to fly some people in because it's for a small movie, they have enough. But if I wanted to do a big movie there, we'd be hard pressed to find everyone and everything we need in Mississippi.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I filmed in Nebraska a couple of years ago. We just brought in an LA crew, honestly, because we couldn't find like basic crew members. Yeah.
I don't know if I asked you, Philip, but in Frisco, do you shoot there, or what's the environment like there? Is it as hostile?
No, not at all. I mean, San Francisco's great, and you get away with.
Just don't walk around barefoot, right?
Well, I mean, you could do like in LA, you just have to go into, you know, a studio and shoot in a studio or shoot in your own property. But in San Francisco, you know, in LA, you ask if you can go shoot in a restaurant, and they're like, how much, you know, when, you know, and in San Francisco, they're like, great, like, can I be in it? And when do you want to shoot? And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a series that we're working on. We're trying to put together with Peacock, but like one of our principal locations was a strip club. I can't in LA. Yeah. You know, it's going to cost me like 15 grand a day to shoot a strip club.
Right.
We went up and shot it in Reno.
Yeah.
It cost us $1,000 a day.
Right.
It's like, absolutely, like work around our hours, and $1,000, and we have the biggest strip club in the city at our disposal to shoot.
Yeah. I mean, I've shot a bank robbing scene in the Bay Area, like in a bank for free. Like,
that's awesome. Yeah. You know, just to say, like, I don't mean to paint this picture of like how dismal it is and what an impossible like uphill battle it is to make a movie that makes money. You just have to really educate yourself about the reality of the business. If you're just going out and making something on spec and assuming that you're just going to go to Sundance and get discovered and make a boatload of money, you're kind of just kidding yourself. You really have to figure out what makes sense budget-wise for your movie. Don't spend $2 if you can make it for $1. And talk to people like Phil and Erik and myself who can give you some feedback and be like, this is not you know, if this is the movie you want to make, that's fine. But like, if it's a genre that's going to be more of a challenge to sell, there's ways to do it and minimize the risk. And if it's like,
I mean,
to any genre, there's things that we would point you toward to be like, this is your best shot.
well, and try to, you know, try to get that any type of a name in there, whatever the budget is. I mean, if you're shooting for $20,000 and shooting a feature, then okay, then forget the name and you're just going for whatever you're going for, and hopefully, you know, like Mark said, some type of genre that can sell. I mean, I'm up for trying, you know, straight dramas, or, you know, especially if I like it. It's you know, I just got submitted a film shot in India yesterday, and I was like, wow, this is great. I don't know if I can sell it, but I'm gonna try. And but as far as what we were just talking about, the, you know, budget or how to sell, how to make sure it sells, I mean, the cast is always prominent. So, you know, yeah, if you're shooting for 100,000, I would say put half of that towards cast. You know, it's you can certainly you can, I mean, well, depending on, I mean, I've shot movies far less than that, you know, gladiator things, storming the castle, you know, for far less. So yeah, horror works. Certainly horror is internationally, it works great.
Was it
Horror's, I personally have found a horror to be hit or miss. It's there's certain territories that love it and thrive on it. There's others that won't touch it.
Yeah, wasn't there a point when it was oversaturated for a little while? Because
well, here's the thing. Horror is one of the few genres that you can kind of get away without big star power. The concept is really the star of the movie. Production value is important, but also there's different subgenres of horror. There's supernatural horror, there's slasher horror, there's creature features. Some are more in demand than others, and that's not consistent throughout the world. You know, in Germany and China, they won't look at anything supernatural. Whereas like other places, they don't necessarily want slasher. So it's always about doing your due diligence and finding kind of what that middle ground is. Horror is a good genre, but you know, it's easy to overspend. I know Shudder right now. I just had a meeting with Shudder. I had sold them completed films, but now they're doing originals. So I went to them to be like, hey, look, you know, we'd love to do an original for you. You know, in my head, I was like, hey, let me put 10 concepts in front of you and you tell us what you're into and give us the thumbs up on cast and whatever. We'll fund it. We'll produce it. They won't pre-buy though, which is problematic because it's like you can be calculated about it, but without that pre-sale commitment, it's very dicey. But like Shudder's paying $400,000 to $600,000 MG just for the US for a Shudder original. If you produce something that they take on and you know, label as a Shudder original, $400,000 to $600,000, that's a lot of money, and you still have the whole rest of the world.
Okay, so I mean, for the audience, that's a white label for them.
Yeah, the rest of the world, like, you know, any big channel or any big distributor in the US that takes on the film, that definitely helps for international sales as well.
Yeah.
There was a question that popped up, Westerns are great. Yeah, definitely.
See, I've found Westerns are great in North America, and outside it's a little bit more challenging.
Well,
just my experience though.
Yeah. It's
I get every domestic distributor being like, yeah, bring us a Western. But then my buyers overseas are like, yeah, not all that into it. Unless it's like an overwhelming amount of like guns and bullets and stuff like that, you know?
Oh, okay. Yeah, these are all kind of really just neat, cool insights.
To answer that other question, there's no like specific budget range that you're going to just carve out and be like, oh, that's bankable. Any budget has a shot at being profitable as long as it's intelligently and strategically produced. And that's the biggest thing I see. The most consistent thing is filmmakers who just kind of throw caution to the wind, and they're so convinced that their creativity and their passion is going to sell their movie. And you know, you really have to find that right balance of understanding the business and having the right creative to back it up. If you're just creative and you're not concerned about the business, the odds are stacked against you. On the flip side, you got a bunch of non-creative distributors just reverse engineering formulaic garbage, and that's a problem too because it oversaturates the market.
That's kind of, you know, like you have to make what you know and what you're passionate about, and just so I get what you're saying, Mark, but also I partly disagree because you gotta. I mean, of course, you got to be strategic, and you got to, like, for me, like, if you have any type of budget at all, like, put half of it towards cast, and so
I agree with that.
But you can't say, oh, I'm going to make a horror film. I hate the genre, but I'm going to make a horror film because it's commercial. It's going to be a flop for sure. No one, you have to go with what you know, and I mean, you're going to be, you're going to be married to this project a long time, a lot longer than you may realize. And
that's true.
Take up all.
I totally see what you're saying. To me, it's kind of like, I love doing action movies, so I just did an action movie. Now I'm going to do a Lifetime movie. It's kind of anticlimactic for me. To me, like making any movie is a gift. But it's harder for me to get excited because making a movie for Lifetime isn't really my passion. But I know it's like a good, commercially it makes sense for my business,
Yeah.
And it keeps me relevant, the fact that I can I'm
still selling films internationally that I've sold on Lifetime years ago. Keep selling. It's just unbelievable. And talk about Tubi. those films that were on Lifetime are just, I mean, they're years old, a decade old.
But they still generate. Yeah, Tubi's great. I actually I have a meeting with them on Monday because I'm trying to get in to do some originals for them too. Which I know they're like big micromanagers, but like, they put up $200,000-300,000 just for US for a Tubi original. And for me, like any genre film, like I love to be involved in, whether I'm producing, directing, whatever. Like, there's certain genres that I like more than others and I'm more passionate about. But like, if they're like, hey, we want a really cool horror film, even though that's not really my cup of tea, like I'd fucking go make a really cool horror film.
Yeah. A question just popped up about scripts too, but that's, if I knew how to sell scripts, then I would sell scripts. It's I don't know. That's a completely, I wish I knew how to sell scripts or, get it to agents, but that's a completely different beast. And that's not anything I do.
Yeah, I get script solicitations all the time. And, unless it's like something that I know fits in my wheelhouse of like low budget action or, a really cool high concept horror film or something that could be done on a budget. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, sorry.
Well, I mean, I actually remember your Silver Linings, Mark, really well because they've come up in my mind with some of the Q&As we've done with the Nova Fest. Where I wish I should have mentioned this.
My Silver Linings.
Yeah, well, you come in pretty straight and honest, and these are going to be your challenges. And because you said earlier, I don't want to sound impossible, but you usually follow up with something like you kind of did today. I remember two comments. One was, it's all about stacking the deck. It's a numbers game. And also, when you look at producing a film, it is, again, this is what we were stressing just last evening. You have to look at it as a business in terms of I think it was you who said,
it's like opening up longevity.
Yeah. If you want to open up a restaurant, there are certain aspects you can't ask the friend or, cut corners here and there. These are the fundamentals of a structured and, again, stacking the deck, the odds of having a successful, I was trying to think of another word. It is not coming to me, but enterprise. So, just want to throw that in there too, because again, some of the comments you have, and I'm not, both of you, I'm not doing any kind of pejorative, but for a lot of creatives coming in for the first time and really not, and this, they're seeing the harsh realities and challenges, the impossibilities that you've got to eat for breakfast. It can be a little bit jarring.
Well, every aspect of this business is a numbers game. Whether you're an actor, you have to do 1 million auditions for every one that's, you have to do 50 auditions for every one that you book. And same with writing, what producing, trying to raise money. You got to go to 100 investors and hope that one says yes, or potential investors. But my point in that is like, diversify yourself too. One thing, I actually wrote a blog for my website about this recently. I've seen this has happened to me, and I've seen a couple of my friends go down this rabbit hole where you get so fixated on one project that you literally go out of your mind. It's like The Shining. Like you literally lose it and lose all track of reality, and you get this sense of desperation. And then assuming you ever get to the point where you can produce the project, you tend to cut so many corners, it doesn't turn out the way you want. So like diversify yourself, whether you're a producer, a writer. Don't just write one script, write 5 or 10 scripts. Diversify yourself so that whoever you're in front of, you might have something to offer them.
Yeah.
Because again, if you get too fixated on one project, you're going to drive yourself nuts.
Right. And also, I mean, on that, like, everybody's talking about like, okay, how do you package a film, and how do you do this, or what's the safe thing, or how do you budget this? I'm like, well, how about just go shoot a movie? And especially if the attitude is like, we'll probably go shoot another movie next year or whatever, but let's just go shoot something, and not worry about the budget, instead of being just stagnant and year to year saying we're still trying to get this thing together, and just go do it. Just go film, and probably, well, at the very least, you're going to learn a lot, and hopefully it comes out way better. Most likely it's going to come out way better than you think. And you have another film.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah.
To answer that question about, is it better to have a slate? I mean, in terms of like pitching, the odds of you getting like somebody saying, oh, we're going to finance or produce six of your films, slim to none. But I think it's good to have an array of things to offer, whether you're just a screenwriter or trying to produce projects, whatever it is. Yeah, because not every investor is the same. Not every producer is the same. Most people are looking for pretty specific things. And, you might have a very capable, interested investor, but if you only have one project to offer and it's a misfire with that investor in terms of like what they're looking to do, it's convenient to be like, well, I got these 3 other things that are very viable too. Maybe one of those is a better fit. Same things with, just across the board. Like I said, always diversify yourself. I think that's the best advice I could give, is don't get too focused on one thing. And also, like Phil's talking about, just go shoot. Or if you're a writer, just keep writing. The more you do it, the better you're going to get, the more lessons you're going to learn, and the more refined you're going to make yourself as an artist.
And that's hopefully the goal. I mean, of course, everybody wants to make money to make the next thing, but
yeah,
hopefully you're working on the art. And I mean, I try to direct something, once a year, but a lot of times it turns into every other year or something. So it's like by the time I'm doing something, I mean, the last shoot was 8 days. I mean, we did the whole feature in 8 days, and it's like, okay, so I did days of directing in 2 years. Like, I just started getting the rust off, and I'm done, and I'm not going to do another one for another 2 years or something, because this sales side just takes up all the time. So I wish I had more time to before I started the sales company, it's like, yeah, time is money, but I had so much time, I could do every aspect and work on it all the time. And now it's like, okay, can I squeeze out, somewhere in this year, usually December, like, can I squeeze out 2 weeks to go shoot something? Yeah. So go shoot, and I mean, I used to give little seminars on how to shoot with absolutely no budget, and it's only gotten better since then on quality and how to shoot. What was the question?
Yeah, I missed it. It disappeared.
It's on the side. I mean, we will open for Q&A towards the end here. We can jump ship and just go for it now. But I want to segue on one thing, because I do see someone in the filmmaker in the audience, brand new, very talented. She just came in. We had a Q&A with her last evening. she opened up Pandora's box again, being very new as far as finance. This could be a topic for even tomorrow, but is anything changed in that world? Is it just that's just the hustle of being a filmmaker and finding where you can, get those funds for the films? Is there anything? I don't know. I'm leaving it wide open. Anything from anything from tax credits to this is a new source or a vein where people are financing films. Has anything changed? It's still just a big giant hustle.
The phone is great. Just if you have a phone, go shoot a movie. No, it's not. It's I get that's more of a Marc question. I'm not really the finance. I'm the sales company with finished, completed features. Usually, I mean, I've tried shorts and honestly haven't been able to give away a short. But so I kind of gave up on that. And like we said earlier, like docs have been small sales, few sales, and small. But as far as finance, Marc, that's on you, brother.
Yeah, I mean, finance is tough. In a perfect world, you got a rich uncle or whatever, but most people don't. I know I never did. And you either have to nickel and dime a budget together, take advantage of regional incentives wherever possible. I know on real micro budget stuff, you don't technically qualify for a lot of those, but if you're spending, significant money in the hundreds of thousands, or if you're lucky enough even to get into that 7-figure range, to not shoot in a region with an incentive, you're just leaving a lot of money on the table. Everybody lives in an interesting time now in terms of like you have crowdfunding at your disposal. I'm not a huge enthusiast of it, but I've seen a lot of people raise money through crowdfunding and make content, which I think is great. So I don't know if things have changed all that much.
I mean, are people still writing to dentists? If you guys even catch that reference,
I'll tell you this: you can sit there all day long and pitch to a potential investor that you're going to make the next big fat Greek wedding. You're probably not. Not to say you can't make a great film, but like I see that pitch all the time. Like they in the comps and people's things, they always put these anomaly movies like Fat Wedding and Paranormal Activity, and like those are anomalies. So like to represent like that's the norm is not accurate. But one thing I've noticed, because I've raised a lot of money over the course of my career, most high net worth individuals need some kind of tax write-off. And investing in a film or TV project is a great tax write-off. So that's a spin that you should always put on it, regardless of the project or the budget or whatever. Is like it's a great place to put your money. I got an investor on the East Coast who he's a wealthy doctor who just sold his business, and he just is looking for good tax write-offs. And so we're trying to figure out a way for him to basically tie some of his money up for a while and, get the write-off that he's looking for, and then structure it in a way that is going to be mutually favorable.
Yeah.
And him.
That I'll help you out.
So Phil, was that what was that? You're going to help finance films? What was that?
I'll help spend Marc's investment.
I don't think that's the way it works, but
he needs a big
I'll do that.
If that's an option. When raising money, you have to be careful about who you're talking to. One lesson I've learned the hard way is there's a difference between getting money and getting the right money. A lot of people represent themselves as capable, qualified, savvy investors, and they're not. I've represented other people's films that have been locked up in lawsuits and stuff with investors because they felt like they were solicited illegitimately, or they couldn't afford to tie up the money or lose the money or whatever. It's like, I don't know, Phil, you've probably come across that too. Yeah.
Not that much, honestly. I mean, the limited investors I've had have been really kind of hands off and yeah. So
what about like films that you've represented? Have you seen
in that side? I mean, we're
indemnified from that, but like I've seen producers get into lawsuits with their investors. So you just got to be careful about who you're taking your money from too.
Yeah, I mean that's like, yeah, I'm not. I don't even want to know. Like, it's like, I'm cutting the checks to whoever is on the contract, and not.
Yeah.
It's like, after that, it's not my responsibility. So, and SAG comes at me with stuff. I'm like, well, I'm not responsible for their SAG, how they distribute. It's like, I have never even seen their SAG agreement, so how can I be responsible for it? So certainly never signed it. So yeah, I get into that with SAG once a year, probably. Yeah.
I mean, would it serve producers, filmmakers to have a fixer, a wolf, Pulp Fiction style, to just be savvy, or is that just part of the entourage you bring on? You bring in a producer.
Well, I think having a producer who knows how to navigate all that is important.
Okay. We're getting
if you're doing micro budget project and doing some crowdfunding, and a few $1,000 from this uncle, and a few $1,000s from that friend, and whatever, and you put together a $25,000 budget and go make a film, it's less of an issue. When you start getting to the point where you're playing with like hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of other people's money, you have to be very buttoned up, because people don't screw around when it comes to that kind of money.
Fair enough. We may just, unless there's something else you'd like to add on this topic, it looks like people are just finding a way to ask some questions. So I'll just bring people, if it's cool with you two, I'll start bringing people up here. Okay. I'll start bringing some of you up on stage. Lisa, I think you're up first. You're definitely here before we even started. So I'm going to click and drag you on stage. And please ask any questions that you have. Turn your microphone on, your camera if you'd wish, but definitely your microphone so we can hear your question. Or maybe you don't want to be in there. Do you not want to ask a question, Lisa? You dragged yourself back into the audience. Okay, here we go again.
Drag her on stage.
Okay, so make sure, is your mic on? Make sure your mic on, and or your camera as well.
Okay, it looks like my mic is on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Lisa, where you at?
Okay, I wish I could get the camera to turn on. It's not listening to me.
Mark asked where you were.
Mark, where are you?
Where am I? Oh, I'm in West Virginia. Yeah, not too far from DC, but
new incentive there.
Say it again.
There's a new incentive there.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
So I'm the one who was asking the questions about being the screenwriter and not actually creating the film. That's not something I'd considered doing yet. And my question's pretty quick, I think. From that perspective, I started out, I have more than one, I've got more than 10. And each of those has done pretty well in the film festival circuit. But I have not gotten to the table with anyone to discuss, actually selling the screenplays. And it makes me wonder if there is truly, that opportunity, that market. And I know that both of you have mentioned that you don't necessarily deal in that, but I'm wondering, the guidance that you just provided was to keep writing. And while I appreciate that, I mean, I'm 10 screenplays in, with most of them having won or done something or placed in some way. So if you are beyond the keep writing stage, is there I don't know, is there not wanting to shoot the film, is that a detriment, or do I just need to go ahead and get a producer and pull together a crew and actually shoot this thing, because I'm shooting myself in the foot by not taking this next step? Or is there just some avenue that I've not looked into?
I mean, it's not really my expertise. I mean, I have in the past tried to get an agent for a script or something, and it's really, really hard, as I'm sure you've found out. But it's not really, outside of that, it's not really my thing. I mean, it's a totally different world. Agents and they're not coming to me at the markets. I'm not going to them at the markets. I'm not. It's not really my thing. Sorry. I wish I had a place for your script and could. But I haven't found it. I haven't honestly for a long time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a specific place.
Oops, somebody's getting a little. I'm gonna see who's got the static going on. It might be Spacey. I'm gonna throw. Yep. So if that's you, Cora or Spacey, you're fiddling around and hitting the microphone, just so you know.
Yeah, I don't have like a specific avenue or pathway to point you to necessarily. I started as a writer myself, and I just, I remember interning at places and trying to get people to read and trying to get agents to read. And it just, I don't know. My path was like, screw this. I'm just going to start making my own stuff. And, I did, not very successfully at first. But, now when I write, like I write with a specific budget. I don't write anything unless it's something that I feel like I have the capability of producing. If you don't have that motivation in you, it's just about networking as much as you can with directors and producers and finding a creative person with that motivation who loves one of your scripts enough that they want to run with it and do the legwork. Because other than that, it's just like that getting in the trenches of trying to find an agent or manager. But even if you get an agent or manager, there's no guarantee that they're going to be able to place one of your scripts properly. So I think the more like film festivals and things you can go to where you can meet filmmakers, get filmmakers interested in your projects. And, I don't know if you gravitate specifically toward a certain genre or budget range. I know when I was younger, I was writing kind of more big budget ideas, but those are much tougher to get set up, write things that are conducive to an independent budget that I think would have a more realistic shot of linking up with an indie producer, director, or somebody who might be able to get it made.
I mean, like boots on the ground, Mark, should she go to like forums, anything from like WGA panels to independent Facebook?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. But like I said, I think going to film festivals and going to film markets and networking with filmmakers. Because again, I think you do enough of that. Like I said, we were talking about it being a numbers game, and it is, in every capacity. You meet enough filmmakers and become friends with filmmakers, and then they read something and they fall in love with something that you read. And then it's like, okay, now you have a creative, motivated person who might be willing to try to take whatever steps to raise money and produce the project, and like everybody, whether you're a writer, director, producer, actor, like you want that one produced thing to just get your ticket punched, something to hang your hat on that's going to give you more credibility. I know the first film I set out to make was $1 million film, and I had, well-known actors attached to it, and I couldn't get it made because at the end of the day, I had no track record. So after like a year of not finding success, I took a step back and I went, okay, I literally wrote something with a $50,000 budget in mind. It was one principal location, very contained, like 5 actors. It was basically a play on film. And like, that was my first film. I think I made it for $45,000. It wasn't a very good film, but at least I got my ticket punched and, it was a stepping stone to something else.
Did you make your money back out of curiosity?
Absolutely not.
So how does that work when you go to your next round of investors? Anybody interested? Like if they straight up business, they ask for ROI on your last project. Is there a spin on it, or you just
no?
No?
The first movie it was, and this was back before like crowdfunding or anything like that. It was just like, I think my father gave me $5,000 and my friend gave me $5,000, and I literally, and I cashed out, the stocks that I had and whatever. I put together like $45,000 and I made this little movie and, went to some film festivals. And even though I went to film school, like that was my real film school, because that was the first time I had to actually deal with logistics and finance and unions and legal and contracts and all the stuff that they don't teach you in film school. But again, after that, I looked at it, I was like, okay, now I proved that I know how to make and deliver a film. But now I need to focus on doing something a little more commercial. So the next film I did was, it's more of a mainstream genre, better cast, kind of everything.
Okay. Let me break for a moment. Erik, are you on? Can you
Yeah,
hear
yeah.
us?
I'll finally
Hey, all
use
right.
my laptop here instead. My iPad couldn't keep up. It was kept choking.
Yeah, this program is rather robust. There are.
I mean, it looks really cool, but then when I tried to log back in, I ended up in some kind of living room, green room, and I couldn't find my way back to the stage. I was lost backstage.
It's a big village we made, but I'm
Yeah.
happy that you're here.
Yep, finally here again.
And Marc keeps talking all the time.
Yeah, sorry. Lisa, did you find any nuggets of wisdom in that? I just kind of rambled.
I did. And you know what, really, I started some of that last year because I thought, okay, this is not happening. You know, nothing's happening yet. So I have started the whole, you know, beating the trail of trying to find a producer who's interested in some of the work. And so it's good to hear that I actually wasn't just making that train of thought up.
Need as many producers and directors as you can.
I would say I think that's the toughest road of all in all of the film world is the script and trying to get somebody to make it or get somebody to represent it. That's just, and trying not to get anyone to steal it. If we like this, like, so to not get it stolen if it's good in somebody's eyes, and I mean that's just the hardest thing.
Erik, and by the way, Marc, everything I kid. I hope you know I kid because everything you say is gold. I'm just
kid? No,
this much, that much.
no.
But Erik, the question was posed. I'm not sure when if you were able to catch on time by Lisa down here, in so much as if you're coming in as a pure screenwriter per se, you don't want to get in the production cycle. You don't want to, you know, that whole fun. All those fun times. You just want to be able to sell your script or get it made. But as a screenwriter, what would you? Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I was listening to everything, and you know,
Okay.
everything is correct and valid. But I'm thinking about the bigger picture with these creative endeavors. Just if you compare what we're doing to everything else out there that you're trying to make, this is not a clear path where you do X, Y, Z, and then you have a job, right? This is something that doesn't have a recipe. You got to do this and this and this, and then you can sell your script. You just got to key, like Marc was saying too, the key element that you cannot skimp on is networking, like you're doing right here, right? You have to meet people, and you have to meet people, and you have to meet people, and eventually you find someone that says, hey, I like this, let's see if we can do something with this. That's really how you get it made. You're not going to get it made by submitting something and hoping someone's going to pick it up and buy it unless you have representation. But that comes later. You got to prove yourself, like you said here before. Also, that's it. You know, you just keep meeting people and prove yourself. And we hired a writer to make a movie. He was just a writer, and we found his script. Because we went out looking for low budget horror scripts that we could produce because we had some financing lined up, and he was just a writer, and we auditioned tons and tons of scripts, and we liked his script, and we reached out and said, hey, let's do something. So
I mean, are there platforms there like Inktip was hot for a little while? Are they still in the picture?
Blacklist. Not Blacklist. The Blacklist. Is that what it's called?
I thought not Inktip, right? Because I know
no.
Okay, okay.
Right. I think is the platform. So my friends are the head of development for Zero Gravity for Mark Williams' company. Guy who created Ozark, and he does a lot of Liam Neeson movies. He did The Accountant. Anyway, the new Liam Neeson movie he just did, Blacklight. That was a script that was pulled off the Blacklist from an unknown writer. They completely rewrote it. But that's a $40 million Liam Neeson movie that was pulled from an unknown writer off the Blacklist.
Okay, interesting.
Why?
So it does happen.
Why is this so hard? Why is everything so hard, guys?
And also, Zero Gravity's head of development is looking for stuff on the Blacklist. So if she is, I'm sure other people are too.
I know someone's going to do some homework tonight, Lisa. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember looking at Inktip years ago and just said, well, I don't know what I think about this, you know. I know some people who do some work on Blacklist, and
okay.
my genre is horror. I forgot to mention that earlier. So yeah, I got a little.
So yeah, go to horror film festivals and meet all those horror filmmakers because they're always looking for the next thing, you know.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Very well.
everybody. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Susan. I'm just going to go in a row here. That's either Cora or Spacey up next. Turn on your mic if you have a
Linda?
question. Yes. So brace yourself. If she can come on, or there she is. Oh, she's giving us the face. We're getting the face. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Question about the value of having a fiscal sponsor, if it's like an actual decent fiscal sponsor. If we have a project that's backed by the Utah Film Center, you mentioned that sometimes there's people who just want tax write-offs or they're really excited about the tax write-offs. Is that something that actually is like enticing to say to somebody like, hey, you're guaranteed this write-off because it's a 501c3 donation? Or is having something where obviously you have to structure it not in a way that gets you in trouble, but like instead of doing the 50-50 split with the investors, anything that's donated, now you can't give a return on it because it's a donation. So you could give someone like a bigger return on their donation, on their investment, and have them split up like, okay, I'm going to write off this much money and then I'm going to invest this much money. And then you just give them like a giant part of the film for a little bit of cash. Like, is stuff like that something people are interested in? I haven't had the opportunity to talk to people who really know.
I think that any kind of tax write-off is always interesting to high net worth individuals. There's an array of different ways to do it. What I always tell people to limit your liability is like, you can make somebody aware of a tax write-off, but it's their responsibility to talk to their tax professional to figure out like how to actually go about it. What you don't want to do is start giving advice about how they should exploit it. All you can do is make them aware of it and be like, look, there's a federal tax incentive, or there's a state tax incentive, this rebate or tax credit that we're going to get that is going to immediately be earmarked as, toward your recoup. Or if it's a 501c3, then, it's a great write-off because it's a nonprofit, whatever it is. Make them aware, but in terms of like creative accounting, that's kind of up to them. Like, just
I'd also
on what type of tax you're giving.
I'd be very careful of like saying we're going to give you 50% or we're going to give you 60%, or just throwing numbers out there. It's like all of a sudden you've given 101% of a film and you're the one spending all the time and money making it, and you're not going to get anything because you just gave it all away. This is real money. These are real percentages, and you can't give out. Can't say,
excuse me, Cora, when you're not talking, do you mind going on mute, because we're getting a lot of feedback on your end? I'm pretty sure. Yep, that's you. Okay, sorry, Phil.
That's it. I mean, just be careful. It's easy to throw around the numbers, and when it's in pre-production and it's not quite real yet, and you're trying to entice the buyers, but you just have to treat it from the get-go that this is real and these percentages are real, and you're going to really give them 50 or 60% of the movie forever. And that's just treat these percentages like they're happening right now, and you're going to get, you're going to do all the work. So you need to be 50, at least a 51% owner of it.
Sounds like the producers. Everybody gets 50% or something like that. You had a follow-up, Cora? Or Erik, did you have something you want to contribute that? Or
No, that's correct. Yeah, exactly. When it comes to tax advice, legal advice, if you're not, licensed or professional in that area, just say, talk to a specialist. But hey, that sounds like a good idea to explore, but I don't know anything about that.
Nice. Love it.
Yeah, that makes sense. But it is something that having it as having a fiscal sponsor saying like, hey, we have this 501c3 opportunity for you to donate to. Here's the information. Go check it out. Like that type of thing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. I believe Dan was up next. Dan, turn off, click on your microphone, and please, we have all the answers here.
Hey guys, this is great. We make Westerns. Our first one we kind of did with friends and family. We had a pretty good cast with it, but Robert Carradine and Lana Wood, a few people. but we're kind of starting from at that point, from this point, and trying to get the getting money away from friends and family type thing. What about establishing a relationship with a distributor before the filming starts? Maybe pay at completion, something like that. And how do you approach on that?
So that's a pre-sale, which I'm happy to talk about the upsides and downsides because I'm in the trenches of it right now. Like I said, it takes a pretty significant package to get a distributor to commit to a pre-sale agreement. The upside is that if you're able to do it, you can securitize a big chunk of the cost of the movie. The downside is you're basically now have studio executives over your shoulder telling you how to make your movie. I'm 6 weeks behind schedule picture locking my current action movie because my distributor has made me recut the first 10 minutes about 12 different times. The streamers have freaked them all out because they're basically saying, they're looking at all their metrics of, viewing habits. And they're like, viewers are watching 10 minutes and turning things off, because we live in this like TikTok, YouTube world where, if you don't grab people in the first 2 minutes, like they move on to their 500 million other options of things to watch. So like I'm at the mercy of this distributor who contractually, they don't have final cut or anything. Like I could stick it to them and be like, okay, this is it, we're done. But I also don't want my distributor to be unhappy. So like trying to find that middle ground. So that's the downside of it is like, I'm beat up at this point, trying to get this movie locked. And I don't get paid out until we deliver the film. In fact, it got to a point where I said to them, I'm like, if you want to keep going, you gotta cover my editor. And they agreed. They're paying my editor now to keep going.
That's good.
That's the downside reality of a pre-sale. How to approach it? Usually you go to these guys, assuming you have the relationship, or you do it through somebody like us, like a sales agent. Like I'll put a package or a proposed package in front of, Lionsgate or Samuel Goldwyn or Saban or whoever, basically say, here's the script. This is the proposed cast. More often than not, they're like, go attach the cast and then bring it back to us. So it becomes a bit of a catch-22, a bit of a chicken or egg. I'm in a good position that I have the ability to do it, but there's still some risk involved. Because if I back an offer, get, X actor attached and put it in front of them, I still need to hit a certain number out of a pre-sale to make the film viable. So,
and I think the pre-sale, there's two ways of interpreting a pre-sale. Some people think, oh, I don't have any budget, so I'm going to get a pre-sale and they're going to give me all the money and I'm going to have the budget to do it. And it's like, well, my pre-sale is paid after the movie's completed. So, you're not funding your budget on a pre-sale. You still need your budget.
Yeah, you still need the cash flow.
Right.
But if you have, if you have paper from a big distributor, you can cash flow through a bank. Or you can come to me. The money's expensive, but
What about negotiating actor's salary? Y'all mentioned some people. Any somebody was saying 50% of the budget ought to be cast. Any tips on that at all?
That was you, Phil, right?
Yeah, talking to the actor, or probably most likely talking to the agent, is an art in itself. And you go in with somebody who really knows the talk and not like just bullshitting around or trying to guess on what to say. Once your first guess that's wrong, the agent's going to shut it down. So you got to know what they want to hear. and that, I mean, that just comes with experience, and then they, you know, they have to. I mean, some actors just want, you know, or the agent will, you know, you throw out a big enough number, they're going to say, well, okay. And then, but, you know, a lot of the actors want to see their role, see the script, and see what they're getting into, see what they're attaching their name to. But you have to, you know, that's, you have to have a budget. You can't say we're trying to raise money and we're trying to get you know, you don't know me, and you know, you don't know my projects, and you don't, I don't have any money yet, but I'm trying to get this name signed, and then I'll be able to get money. That's
the first question they always ask is it funded?
Yeah.
Working with that's kind of the upside of working with a casting director. They will help guide that, and they have a lot of those existing relationships with agents and managers, and they can kind of give you an idea of whether you're even in the ballpark. I see proposals all the time for these little like $300,000 movies, and they have like Chris Hemsworth as a potential cast member. It's like, it's never going to happen, you know? But in the indie world, there's a huge pool of good, globally known and valuable talent available. But on one hand, you got to know that you're coming in with an offer that's going to get taken seriously. On the other hand, got to be careful not to overpay, because most of the time when a movie's budget becomes not viable, it's because the cast is driving it over the point of the finance structure making sense. Like, I know one actor in particular who shows up in a lot of indie movies lately, and like his manager all day long wants $100,000 a day, and people are dumb enough to pay it. And there's a huge discrepancy between an actor's real value in the market versus what the actor or the actor's representatives think their value is. Huge discrepancy. You know, so yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to it, but working with a casting director or a producer who has a lot of experience casting name talent, you know, they're going to give you a lot of guidance and insight. Also, there's ways to leverage it. You know, if you want a specific actor and you go to that manager or agent and you're like really gunning for that actor and be like, look, I'll package the whole rest of the movie with you guys.
What does that mean?
I'm sorry?
What does that mean? I'll package the rest of the movie with those.
So on my first little $45,000 movie that I made years ago, there was an actor named Bill Sadler who I really wanted to play a role. It was like a 2-day role. He was the only known actor in the thing. I went to his agent, and the only reason I was able to get him was because I cast my 2 young leads with that agent. So she was able to package her like lesser known up and coming talent opposite one of her known talent. I got the actor I wanted. I got a couple of really good young actors, and you see what I'm saying? Like, I was able to get the actor I want because I leveraged the rest of my cast.
Gotcha.
Or like the movie I'm just about to do in Mississippi. So with like the Lifetime and Hallmark type movies, there's actual lists of preferred talent that are circulated. So like Lifetime and Hallmark, and there's a big network in Europe called TF1 that buys all these movies. They actually have a list full of headshots of actors that are like pre-approved for their movies. So we cast off that list. So for example, the lead female, which is the most important role in the movie, we cast off of TF1's list. And then we went to Lifetime and they gave the thumbs up, but we intentionally left the second female actor open as a bargaining chip, basically, to make sure we got the lead actress that we wanted. So for example, when we went and made the offer, we said, we also have this other role we're willing to cast from your pool of talent, you know, assuming we can work this out. So
Nice.
there's a strategy to casting.
Okay.
Erik, you've been kind of quiet over there. Usually, yes. Are you just agreeing with everything that's being out there? And plus, you have a German accent. It comes with more authority.
It's not a German accent.
No, I think working with a casting director is great because, just like you hire a specialist to do every other job in the filmmaking team, casting director is a
Good point.
specialist at getting good cast or the correct cast for your project and budget. It's
Yeah,
very
casting
hard to do
directors.
everything yourself. So yeah, work with a professional.
Yeah, casting directors will bring talent to your attention that might not otherwise have even been on your radar.
Well, it's also, going back to the agent also, like if you worked with an agent on a film, I mean, everything takes time, right? So, if first one, maybe you're working with an actor that the agency is, it's just a really small as far as a name goes. But once you've worked with that actor and worked with that agent, and they see that that you've treated them professionally and you paid and you made the film and everything. So then the next project, you can go back to that same agent and say, okay, I've got the next thing. And then he or she's going to give the heads up, the thumbs up to maybe a bigger cast person, even if the budget isn't that big.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Dan, I had to mute your mic as you were getting some feedback for you. I'm pretty sure you can unmute it if you like, but
the other thing, is make it convenient for the actor. Like, if they're from LA, try to, instead of saying, you're going to come to my state and you're going to film for this amount of time, and it's like, how about you go to LA and shoot in a studio for whatever, a day or whatever it is, but he said, you make it convenient for them as opposed to just laying out your terms. You're gonna, it's kind of hard for a name actor to, say, go to some unknown shoot and, get on a plane as opposed to drive to a studio and give a few hours or a day. Yeah.
I mean, are there just like a number of nuances to, just casting tricks, if we call it that? I remember running across someone saying, try to get some foreign actors that are, maybe UK, their names, but they like to work in America. So that's an incentive for them, and talk to managers and not agents, because are there like a lot of little tricks to the game like that, or am I just talking out of the side of my head?
No, I mean, yeah, typically managers are going to be more receptive than agents, although a lot of managers are former agents.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing is like talent attracts talent. So, if you get one actor attached, it might attract another actor that brings value to the project. And I don't know, like I said, I think working with casting directors is hugely advantageous for that reason, is they're going to help guide the strategy around it.
I remember one story. We talked many years ago. We talked to a French TV buyer that we've known for many years. And we talked about this, who should we cast and how many famous people do you want? And we always thought, oh, the more the merrier. And he said, oh, no. Just give me one name or one and a half, like not more than two really good names. Because in Europe, when they're dubbing it, they have contracts with specific actors that always dub these famous actors. And they can charge whatever they want because they are under contract, right, to always dub that known American actor. So he said, if you have too many known actors, I can't afford to buy the movie and dub it because it's going to be too expensive. So that's why I only need one name. That was for TV sales, right? But they do dub them. And I thought that was good advice at the time, because that's just something we didn't consider. And he said, yeah, not too many famous names because I can't afford to dub it.
I've never heard that, Erik. I've never heard that.
That was a French TV buyer, and
I've never heard. Don't give me too many names.
Oh, one other thing, I think, and I've done this both ways. I think you're always better off casting a known actor as your lead and surrounding him with really good unknown supporting than the other way around. Than casting a good unknown as your lead, and then like stunt cast like a guy here for a day, a guy there for a day. Now, sometimes you can only afford to get an actor for a day or two. I get that. But if possible, you're always better off getting the known actor in the bigger role.
I mean, because that's been a theme for a while. Is that like more majorly poo-pooed now in the industry, where you
I
bring in
remember one of the first movies I made that actually had a budget, where I was able to afford some talent. It was a little action thriller, and I cast a buddy of mine who was like, you know, great with action, cast him as my lead, and then I surrounded him with a bunch of well-known character actors who all came in for like a day or two each. And I heard over and over and over again from buyers that were like, you should have done it the other way around. We would have rather had that name as your lead with a bunch of unknowns than have each of these 4 guys in there for like 1 to 2 scenes each. Or if you are going to stunt cast, like be smart and spread them out throughout the movie. Like I directed a movie with Danny Trejo years ago. He was our bad guy. I only had him. I only had him for like 3 or 4 days, but like we shot the shit out of him. Like you start the movie with him, you end the movie with him, and he's throughout very consistently. So like if you are going to stunt cast or can only afford an actor for a day or two, figure out a way to get them in as much of the movie and throughout the movie as much as possible.
Because that turns into real numbers when contracts and numbers.
I've seen buyers literally go into market screenings with stopwatches to see like how long does it take for the actor to show up and how long are they in the movie. I swear to God, I've seen it.
A lot of new information between you and Erik on that one. Dan, is that everything you got? Please, if you have any more questions.
Well, but one other thing we're going for with our film is trying to get nonprofits involved. The Western script's rather unique in that it has a Alzheimer's ridden hero, and so we're thinking about going to Alzheimer's Foundation, Memory Matters Foundation, etc., and seeing if they might be interested in backing it. Is that a off the wall crazy idea?
I don't think it's off the wall. I mean, but think of it like product placement. They're going to want to know, like, if they're putting money into your thing rather than their cause, what is the end game for it?
Mm-hmm.
What's their
the end game? That's a great question. I think the end game is offering private showings like online here. I don't know if that's something or not, to help them raise money further on, because it's an action picture for sure, but it's accessible. I don't think it would eliminate or offend anyone, but to do sessions just like this showing the film, and get raise money that way. Anyway,
yeah, I mean, as long as there's like a legitimate return on investment plan, I think it makes sense. Like people talk about product placement is different, but it's kind of the same thing. People talk about product placement, but like most companies are only going to put money and place their product in something if they know that you have like legitimate distribution, that they're going to have a ton of eyeballs on it.
Yeah.
If you're like, oh, well, I don't know what I'm doing with this movie, we're going to make it and then try to go to a film festival and we'll see, like, what's their incentive to put money into it? So like, right. I kind of equate it to the same type of deal, but I wouldn't dissuade you from doing it. I say, go for it.
I mean, in my 2 cents,
like, have a plan for like what's their upside for them putting money in.
Yeah, Dan, everything, the whole production side from AA batteries on, it's all about. I think everybody will agree that there's such a huge hustle factor in being resourceful. Get it where you can, legitimately. I just mentioned the story the other evening where there was these documentary filmmakers, and they were doing a doc on the veterans coming from overseas, where there to be a community who greeted them. So they, on their, just thinking out of the box, they went ahead and cross-referenced entertainment attorneys who were former military. Nice. And they contacted them. Guess what? Free legal services.
Nice.
Just because they were somehow invested into the project. And there are tons of stories like that. So, and every production's different. It sounds like what you're doing is absolutely unique, but there are whole sub-societies within just the 2 things you mentioned. And maybe there's a way to cross-reference Westerns and Alzheimer's and who knows what. No,
but
medical field.
you guys made a really good point, because it's always ROI, always, and to refocus that in what you said is perfect. Thank you.
Awesome.
Good luck with it.
Absolutely. Keep
me posted. I love watching Westerns.
You just made a connection. You just networked, man.
Well, I would love to make a Western. I just don't know how to sell it.
I'd love to talk to you. I've got a couple of good actors attached. Well, right now I've got, believe it or not, Tony Dow. So, which is an absolute oddity, but playing the Alzheimer's ridden cowboy. He's got 150,000 plus followers on Facebook. He's dying to do a Western.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the domestic buyers love Westerns, but I've gotten so little traction trying to get foreign buyers interested in them.
Yeah, I think about, and when you're talking Westerns, maybe Germany, maybe Italy, right? Germany they like Westerns, but they like weird Westerns. So, but there is a Western market there. But yeah, I hear you. I think that's probably it. I think it's mostly domestic. Japanese and English a little bit on Westerns. We did.
Out of curiosity, when you say like the Germans and the Japanese and everything, like what's the intel that? Yeah, I'm genuinely curious.
Well, I mean, Terence Hill from the Trinity series for Italy, right? I mean, he's still works. He's got a series going right now. It's not a Western series, but he did do a Western miniseries just a while back. Of course,
I know Italy obviously has like a huge history in the Western genre, but like, these days, unless it's like a silly asylum creature feature, I can't get much traction out of Italy on anything.
Well, I mean, you're going to know, and I certainly would defer to that. With Germany, they have the Winnetou series, and again, they have recently made some German Westerns too, which I can't think. I couldn't say the actor's name to save my life, but there is some there. Yeah, and with United Kingdom in particular, there's some traction with Westerns there. Ben Bridges is a well-known English Western writer of novels over there, and he has like a subgroup that he promotes Westerns there. So there's some, but I mean, Mark, I think you're right on. I mean,
just like I said, it's a genre I've always enjoyed watching. I've been kind of stumped at how to actually go about producing one.
Well, yeah, I'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, Nick, I'll totally shamelessly exploit that. If Mark or any of you gentlemen have time, you look on the left side. We have 2 breakout rooms. You can have private conversations. You can have group conversations, or to respect people's time. Just like the real live world. Go ahead, and it's something we do too. We haven't really emphasized it, but schedule a meeting like you would at AFM or another market. Meet at because you have access. Meet at breakout room 2 at 5 o'clock, or it's virtual, so we're open 24/7. Again, just throwing it out there as an opportunity.
Well, yeah, and I don't know how to do what you just said, but
you just click on it. Like if you look to your left on that column, you see where it says CFM breakout 1, breakout 2. Those are like side lounges if we were at a hotel, or just.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, you can check it out real quick if you want, or we can go there together later. But yeah, it's just a lounge, but it's obviously in this cosmetic virtual world. Again, just throwing it out there, and we'll be back. We'll see. I don't think Erik can make it back tomorrow, but we'll have another session tomorrow.
Erik, are you going to Cannes?
Questions?
Sorry, what?
Are you going to Cannes?
No, not in May. No, we're not.
You're not?
No.
Can we ask what your factors or determinations in that decision are?
Well, when I did my introduction before and I got disconnected, I started to say that we have to actually rethink about the whole thing about foreign sales and what our role at these markets are.
if we just look at it from a business perspective, what makes sense for us is to just be direct with these platforms, because we have seen our traditional foreign sales just really just disappear, and it's just very, very expensive to go to these markets. And what are we trying to accomplish? Well, you can always network and hopefully meet platforms, but yeah, we're gonna sit this one out, and
I
then
think it's going to be extremely underattended.
Maybe I have some friends there right now for the MIP TV, and they're super happy to be there in person again, and they're sending pictures.
Oh,
So
I heard it was like kind of a ghost town.
it might be a ghost town, but the few that showed up, they were very happy to be there.
People are just happy to be back, but
Are they making deals though? Are they closing deals?
50 whether I'm going, but if I do go, I'm not exhibiting.
No, exactly. No, that was what we said too. If we go, then we just go as a network opportunity. We don't need to buy a booth and all that, because we don't really see any return from that kind of investment. We've been doing this for many years now, and things are changing so quickly that traditional model selling films, unless you have real fame involved, it just doesn't have any business. It just doesn't do any business. No one is it has no demand from a business perspective. It might be a wonderful film and all that, and win awards and yada yada. But if we're looking at it just as a money-making tool, then it's not. You try and sell chewing gum no one wants the flavor of.
Yeah, right. It's a good way to put it. I like that.
Well, it's crap. If you're gonna be like a little 7-Eleven corner store and selling everything, then what do people want? Well, they go to Walmart. They go to Netflix. I mean, there's just so much amazingly well-produced content on these the big streaming platforms. And when we go to Europe, I always ask all my friends and family and everyone, where do you watch movies? If you don't go to the theater, where do you see movies? And they all say HBO, Netflix, Amazon. That's it. That's where they see movies. It's like, okay. And so that's the competition. And they're so powerful now, especially when they do local productions in each territory in their own native language. I don't know how these, distributors in Germany and France and Italy, I mean, they're scratching their heads, because how are they going to make money unless they can sell it into Netflix themselves or do a co-production with them? That's really where the business of the business is at. I mean, these little films, like you said in the beginning, Mark, it's bulk deals with platforms, and you're trying to get some license money up front, at least to see some cash. And then you have to hopefully not have to chase them for years and years for them to do reporting and payments. Wow. But I think for us little, indie distributors and so on and producers, the AVOD, like you said, is the future for all of us. And we have seen a lot of positive results from all these new YouTube multi-channel networks, the MCNs. Like one company, they have lots of different channels, and they do drive traffic there. And the checks we have seen from that type of AVOD is very, very promising. It's very positive, actually. So it's not Debbie Down, everything is bad. But I do think the AVOD, in whatever way, shape, or form, is the future for us in the makers and distributors and all of us who swim in this little lake of indie world. And I think, so what's our goal? What do we really want to do? Is this what we're going to do and just keep repeating the same thing? I think as a production company, really, you have to do co-productions with the big platforms. As a creative, to satisfy like creativity, and also as a business thing, that's where it's at. And I think that's where we are aiming our efforts and long-term goals, is to co-create with Netflix and HBO and so on, because that's where people want to see it, and they have the money to make things happen. So that's really where we're focusing, the long-term goal of creation.
Okay. And for the record, because we have some newer people in the audience, AVOD is advertising-based video on demand, if loosely or directly interpreted, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Commercials. Again, that's what we mentioned earlier, Marc.
So it's like I said for many years when we talked to producers, filmmakers at these various markets. The good news is that there seems to be an interest for unknown films. They just don't want to pay anything for them up front. You can't get people to rent a movie they know nothing about. the industry jargon is pre-awareness. How much pre-awareness does this film have? Like, at what level do the film connect with the audiences, or vice versa? So an unknown entity, even though it has a bunch of laurels, people are not going to spend money on it up front, but they're curious and they watch it and they don't seem to mind the ads so much.
Yeah. I mean, one of my top grossing movies is a little like non-union, no well-known cast indie drama. And it's just an anomaly. It's one of those things that hit and it did real well. We actually made a sequel to it and that one hit as well. But it's all AVOD.
Yep.
All AVOD.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's all Tubi and Prime and now IMDb TV and Peacock, and it's all AVOD revenue. Yep. But it's significant.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, like I said, I think if that movie was on like a pay service, I don't know if it would have done the same thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that barrier, just the idea of, should I pay $4 for this or $2? It's not the amount of money. It's just that I have to pay for something up front that I don't even know what it is. It's just, I don't see it happening.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. You're right.
Oh, all right. Well, two things, Mark. One, that was a great comment Erik had, but I still think my Charlie Tuna is better, if you'll recall. And two, we have a brand new awesome director waiting in the wings here, Sabrina. She was our guest Friday evening. And Sabrina, please, she has a great film. Please, if you're still there, jump on. Make sure you turn on your mic. Thank you.
Hi. So Mark and Phil, you mentioned earlier that you were looking into episodics. I was just curious, how are you going about that? Like, are you looking at for scripts, or what are you looking for?
I mean, for myself, no, not scripts, sorry, but completed films. I mean, we have, I try to give the distributors, the buyers, the option for, like, if you have a series, like trying to say, okay, here's a series that's in, episodes, or you can have it as a feature film. And because that's kind of what, that's been my success, has been features. So, I'm just, that's really my main focus, really has been just feature films. And even turning a series into a feature. Yeah.
My partner and I, we've been messing around with developing series content for a while. We've done 2 pilots, and then we have 3 others in development that are all things that are relatively packaged. TV's such a different monster. It was actually the pilot that I think you showed last year, Fernando.
Yeah.
So we've been doing the dance with Peacock for going on.
Oh, I remember that now. Wow.
And we still haven't come to terms on it. They want to do that. Yeah, they want to do. Well, wow. HBO Max and Peacock both came to the table on it, and they both like the series. Netflix wanted it too, but Netflix is like, bring us 8 finished episodes. And I'm like, okay, what kind of range are we talking about per episode? They're like, bring us 8 finished episodes and then we can talk. And it's like, you know what? Like, get out of here. My other issue with Netflix is like, Netflix doesn't give TLC to anything. They just throw it on, unless it's one of their big tentpole things that they produce, they just acquire a bunch of finished content. They throw it on. They're not pushing or promoting anything really. So the reason why I was really interested in working with HBO Max or Peacock was because if Peacock picks it up and makes it a Peacock original series, they're actually going to push it. Roku picks up things and they actually push it. And like, you see billboards and like, they're actually putting marketing dollars behind content, which means it gives it a shot at going beyond a first season. The reason you see these things come and go so often on Netflix is because they're not pushing anything. So unless something really breaks out on its own, they just let things fizzle and die and then they move on. But anyway, there's a big difference between TV with the streamers and TV with networks. It was explained to me by my showrunner, basically, like, if a network wants this show, because CBS was circling it as well, they're like, if CBS wants it, they're going to pay you more money than you've ever seen to go the fuck away. He's like, your name will be on it, but they will make it whatever they want to make it. If you sell them a blue bike and they want a red bike, they'll turn it into a red bike and they'll pay you to go away. He's like, the streamers, on the other hand, they're probably going to let you more or less make the show you want to make, but you're going to be making it on a very, very, very tight budget. And the idea is like, make the first season, which is only 8 episodes, 8 half-hour episodes. You do the first season as inexpensively and economically as possible. And then if it hits, then it's fuck you, pay me for season 2, 3, whatever. And I was told, you know, when these conversations first started happening, like, start developing season 2 and 3, because if they get excited about it and they put it out and it hits, they're going to want to know that's ready to go. You know, I see a lot of times like, oh, I got a script for a pilot. It's like, no, they want to see a Bible. They want to see scripts and layout for an entire first season and potentially second and third season. That's an exhausting amount of work. An exhausting amount of work.
Sounds like it.
But then on the others, and like we have a pilot that we produced called Elwood with Ron Perlman and Michael Rooker and Malcolm McDowell. It's a great pilot that made people's heads spin. But when we first produced it a few years ago, like, we couldn't find traction with it because it's a very big, expensive, visual effects driven concept. Now with virtual production, all of a sudden there's been like a renewed interest in it. But during the pandemic, our agent got us pitch sessions. They were all via Zoom, but we had pitches with the executives from Netflix, Sony, and Paramount. And like, being in those pitches, that was the first time I was ever in pitches with like big execs like that. They didn't go anywhere as near as smoothly as we had hoped. I mean, they're tough. They're really tough. Even if they like the concept, they're like, you know, they're really daunting rooms to be in. I don't know if Zoom made it easier or harder, but like, we were so deflated when we got out of them. And 2 of the 3 basically left the door open of like, we like this. It just doesn't seem right now for whatever reason. But it's a whole different thing. But we've also learned that unless you have a packaging agent or a showrunner, like, doesn't really matter what your concept is. It's really tough to get in those rooms. Really tough. So TV is just a different monster. I haven't by any means mastered it or really figured out the formula for success yet. I'm just kind of like, you know, going through the motions, and I feel fortunate that there's interest from these places. But the other challenging thing I have when I make a movie, like, I'm spearheading everything. I'm the one having the direct conversations with the distributors, with the money, with everybody, with the agents, with the unions. With TV, I'm always at the mercy of somebody else having a conversation on my behalf. Even when I'm in the room, it's like, no, you're not the one that's going to talk. He's going to talk. So I don't know. It's such a different monster. But the one consistent that I hear everybody say, they want to see 6 to 8 completed episodes. So if you're actually going to go out and like raise money and produce 6 to 8 episodes of something, make sure you have a plan B that you can repurpose it as a movie or something in case it doesn't find legs as a series.
Well, finger to the wind right now. Is that trending-ish, more or less, over the past 12 months? Our series, web TV series, episodics, above like independent film? You know?
So my series Stripped that I showed you guys last year, it was the pilot was, we originally designed it as a web series. It was supposed to be 6 10-minute episodes. And because I wanted to pitch it to Showtime, I cut it as a 56-minute pilot. And then everybody, after Quibi died as quickly as it did, everybody came back and said, we like this, but only as a traditional like half-hour format. Nobody was interested in it as a web series. So we completely repurposed it as a traditional format. So I'm not saying web series are dead, but I don't see an obvious pathway for them.
And that could change, right? Just
sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I personally love web series. I was producing web series back in like the days before YouTube was even around. You know, there were all these little digital networks like Coldcast TV and Crackle and all these places that were doing short form series. And I think they even have an Emmy for it now. But I don't know anyone who's like really found success or made money with a web series. And like I said, our thing was designed as a web series, and our thing, we spent, you know, some money and had, you know, a very well-known cast and the whole thing, but nobody was interested in it as a web series. Everybody said they wanted it as half-hour format.
Interesting. Okay. Well, we are right at the final moments hour of today's session. We will be back tomorrow at the same time. But while we have any people here right now, if you have any final salvo questions, or if anybody on the panel has something they want to say or even push, and again, this is a film market, so we just did this last night, and this is a different space. This is the first day of the weekend film market. You can have your side meetings. Again, it's the virtual version of a live environment. So we'll, as soon as I shut up, we'll jump over to the other breakout rooms, or I'll invite you to, and so you can see what's going on in there. But please feel free, again, like in the live space, reach out to everybody. Their information is online, even if, to do something like a phone call or an email, something, drastic like that. Please feel free. But while we have this space, it's virtual, it's open 24/7. So it's not as big a restriction geographically or in terms of time zones. This is the time to reach out. These are the gentlemen and people who know their poop, and they get the job done.
One final thing to say: there's I became my own sales agent because there's so many bad ones, but those two guys are awesome. I'm pretty straightforward and honest. These two guys are good ones. There's a lot of bad ones, but Fernando, you bring good ones.
Well, thank you. All these, everybody we bring here is vetted to whatever degree. I've known everybody here for at least 2, 3, 4 years. Erik is my sales agent. So all of a sudden, Erik, we've known each other for over 10 years. That's just, I can't fathom that.
Is that how you bought that Corvette off of selling your movie?
I think so. For sure. and here's the deal too. Just another little quirk or nuance of I mentioned the coined term Hollywood. I went to AFM 1 or 2 years, and I never met Erik and Maria of Leomark Studios at all. I think we connected on Indeed or LinkedIn or something like that.
LinkedIn, probably.
Yeah, you put out a little spray and pray. I was like, I have a movie. Click, and again, I was lost as any other naive newbie walking around AFM throwing money away on and not knowing what to do. We never crossed paths.
That might be my last bit of experience or wisdom. Maybe I don't know if anyone's interested, but I thought I've kind of figured out how to work LinkedIn. It was just many years ago, but I was looking and trying to connect. And you read the news feed and all that, and I realized most people just say, "Oh, help me," me. And I thought, instead of saying the same thing, I thought, all right, I'll start to answer them instead of just saying, "I'm looking for this, help me." I said, all right, I'll answer you, and I'll answer you, and answer you. I started answering people their calls and say, "Sure, what do you need help with?" And I reached out in that capacity, and we actually have not a lot, but a healthy amount of movies that we found on LinkedIn from me just answering people's calls, saying, "Help me, I need this something," and I just responded and said, "Sure, what do you need?" And now many of them have turned into long-time friends, actually. So,
all right, Erik, I need some stuff.
But again, he needed some help. He wants a Corvette too.
Yep.
Oh, I can help you with that, sure.
Yep.
Okay. Well, if you like, everybody, let's on the column to your, I think it's everybody's the same on the left. We can jump to breakout room 1. Just click on it, and thank you, Fernando, for coming. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah,
I'll go. Everybody jump over to CFM breakout room.
Chat.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.